Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? And it's just one of those things where, excuse me, my cough is getting worse. I am actually going for a COVID test tomorrow because starting to get a bit concerned that this hasn't gone away. Assumed I had a cold, but it might not be. So I'll let you know how that goes, but I did not want to not update you on activism that had taken place yesterday. And part of the problem is, though, I couldn't queue up all of the material I wanted to queue up because sometimes things just take forever to download. They just downloaded as I was coming on. So there won't be the smooth transition there normally is, but I'll still be able to play all the videos and do all the commentary. It's just not set up as ahead of time as I would like. And I think perhaps, do I have a show tomorrow? I do. I think I have a show, is it tomorrow or Friday, with the top 2. I'll have to look that up, but take a look on my channel. It is scheduled for live, and I will be doing an LNC update because it's gotten quite interesting where all of a sudden they're very interested in my YouTube channel and patrons, which I have had forever and which is common. Plenty of people do YouTube full time and they're acting like this is something nefarious. And of course, you know, none of this was an issue until I started exposing things that were going on. So I think the agenda is quite apparent. But everything again is public. Let them make a policy and they can have whatever information they want. I think this is pretty transparent to the members what is going on, and I think it's quite pathetic to be happening with the Libertarian Party. But you know what I say? Go on with your bad selves. You're only making yourselves look really, really bad. Okay, now though, since we were speaking of that, let me hide this chat window a second. And here's what they're getting so incensed about. There is my Patreon. If you enjoy the work that I do and you would like to voluntarily contribute, all of a sudden libertarians having a problem with that is quite interesting. Don't have a problem so much, you know, it's funny. Have you noticed something? That the LNC has spoken more about my YouTube channel than they have about the corruption of our former chair. I find that very interesting, do you? And more about that than the retaliatory motions to try to remove me? Yeah, I do find that quite interesting, where attention is focused. But go on. Carry on. But there it is for you. And also in the low bar, if you're watching on YouTube, you can find my Amazon affiliate link and also my Amazon wishlist address, all the particulars if you would like to support me. I truly, truly appreciate it, and it's what frees up time for me to do more of these shows, which is right now a part-time job for me. How sinister. All right, let's get that off the screen and put back up the chat widget. As always, this is participatory. I would love to hear from you. So let me set up the scene. The town of Castle Rock, which is where I live, is generally a pretty fiscally conservative. Well, I thought it was pretty fiscally conservative. Douglas County is a pretty conservative county in the middle of a blue state. But I need to explain some things about Colorado politics and some unique things we have here before we get into the real life community activism that my husband and I and several other Colorado libertarians were doing here. So let me pull up this screen, and I wanted to explain to you something very unique we have here. But again, I had to download this stuff, just downloaded. So let me find where it downloaded to. This is interesting. Where did it download to? Here we go. I need to unzip a zip file. So let me do that really quickly. And I would encourage you, while this is going, that you keep track of what's going on in the town councils and the like in your area, because that is really where libertarians can make a huge difference in the lives of people. Okay, what I wanted to pull up is we have something here in Colorado, let me center this, called the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And it is somewhat unique to Colorado. And let me now pull it up on my screen so I can read it at the same time you guys are looking at, because this is going to become very important with what we're discussing about. It's called Tabor here, and it is, it says advocated by conservative and free market libertarian groups. Okie doke. So it's a provision that the long and short of it is that overall tax revenue has to be tied to inflation, and anything that wasn't spent needs to be refunded back to the taxpayer. But let's look at the technical language here. So it says 92 Colorado Amendment, and it was amendment to our Constitution. It says it restricts revenues for all levels of government, state, local, and schools. Under Tabor, state and local governments cannot raise tax rates without voter approval and cannot spend revenues collected under existing tax rates without voter approval if revenues grow faster than the rate of inflation and population growth. Revenue in excess of the Tabor limit, commonly referred to as the Tabor surplus, must be refunded to taxpayers unless voters approve a revenue change as an offset in a referendum. And it says how much has been given back already. So let's go to the second page here. And it talks about multiple times that Tabor was suspended in Colorado because they're constantly wanting to keep the excess revenue, as politics do. Now, the person who was very responsible for Tabor was an activist here in Colorado by the name of Douglas Bruce. Douglas Bruce is infamous because he is a prickly, motivated activist. Like, he does not countenance fools lightly. And he's quite famous for his tax reduction activism, to the point that, you know, when Tabor is either attempted to be gotten around or repealed or whatever, it's called de-Brucing here in Colorado. And it's funny here, well, funny but not funny, that they have to mention that Doug Bruce is a convicted felon. Like, I don't care. And but Tabor is something that we are very proud of here in Colorado. And I like on the third page here, it says, many advocates of a more libertarian view say that reduced taxation is a noble goal for its own sake. And of course, there are opponents. So, something about the opponents that I laugh about. It says, some opponents claim that complicated tax decisions are best decided by deliberation based on well-informed argument and informed consent. Well, I don't consent, and I never do. Such as presumably occurs in legislatures. Yes, the taxpayers cannot decide the rate of their own theft. Can't have that now, can we? So that Tabor is a background to what we're going to be talking about today. And I wanted to pull up a few other things. Let's get this one off the screen. I wanted to pull up the agenda. So now that you have the Tabor background, that was on the docket for this Tuesday for Castle Rock. I think it was on the second page. Wasn't consent count. Okay, here we go. It was item number 14. It was possible ballot measures related to funding police and fire departments. So it was to add a tax, a new home construction tax, to fund police and fire departments. Also, a lodging tax per every room, and presumably also Airbnb for parks and recreation. A sales tax to purchase more open space for parks and recreation, and a Tabor timeout, which it is called when there's a referendum to let the town keep any excess revenue for town priorities, which they, you know, will always say. There's always three things they'll always say it's for: schools, police, or fire, because that pulls at the heartstrings. So this is what was on the agenda. Let me pull up a few other things. Okay, here is in Castle Rock. Back in 2005, Castle Rock voters approved a 5-year Tabor timeout. So they allowed, or decided for everybody, a majority decided for everybody that we didn't need our Tabor refunds, even though that is a taxpayer bill of rights. So you can see they did that in 2005. So that put that up to about 2010, that in Castle Rock we were not getting our Tabor refunds. And then they struggled with having to refund money for a few years. And then, I think it was 2017, me see here, 2015 or 2016, again, there was another Tabor timeout in Castle Rock. It mentions that here where it says the town's current Tabor status. So that lets you know kind of where we were at. The last timeout, which is the one referenced in this document, was about to expire. Can't have that now, can we? So going back here, and maybe make sure there was no comments that I missed. No. Okay, good. You guys are awful quiet today, though. So I'd like to play for you, because some of you do not have experience in testifying before town councils. And I'm very proud of the libertarians that showed up and of my own testimony. To be honest with you, I thought I brought the fire. I'm going to just be perfectly honest. I just love chastising government. But I'd like to play for you bits of this town council hearing. So let's go here. And let me pull up the first clip.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So our number one priority for our community is to ensure that we have a safe and secure community. And we've been able to do that very, very well. As you know, we've been recognized the last several years as being one of the safest communities in Colorado. This year we were recognized by SafeWise as the top 10, so the number 8 safest city in Colorado. And if you compare us against communities that are over 50,000, we're number 1. And we're able to do that very efficiently. And as you've heard me speak before about our ratio of officers per 1,000, we're able to do that with 1.05 officers per 1,000, which is the lowest ratio of any police department that serves the Front Range, and quite honestly, any police department that I even know of that has a population that we do. So that's pretty amazing, and we've been able to create that. But it's not just about creating a safe and secure community for us. It's about creating a community where we can thrive as an organization, as a police department, that translates into helping our community thrive. That's what's important to us. And we just reached a point in time where we are right now, where we have grown as a community, and we need additional resources. We need additional police officers. We need civilian staff, for example, our dispatchers, as we move forward. We know in the next 5 years that our projected growth is going to take us to about 90,000 in 2026. We are currently at 1.05 officers per 1,000. If we don't add any officers in the next 5 years, then we'll drop to below 1 to about 0.87. Sure, like Nora said, we'll be here to provide the services, but we want to provide a high level of service. And that goes back to our why. And our why is our vision of one-by-one policing. You've heard me speak about it before. But it's about creating environments that are safe and secure for everyone to thrive by serving people one by one. And that starts inside our organization, where as leaders, we are serving our officers and our employees one by one and ensuring that they can thrive so that we can ensure that the community does that. And that takes resources. It's very important for our officers to be highly trained, provided great equipment and the best technology. And we have been blessed in recent years for us to be able to do that. And because of that, we're able to provide that high level of service. Going forward, we're just going to need to continue to do that. I think that's what the community expects, and that's what we want to provide the community. You've seen our request, and going forward, we know that if we have a growing community, we need to grow with the community and thrive with them. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
So, that was the police chief, doing his plea for why we need more money for police and fire. Because this population growth, and we still need to provide all these services. But what they don't explicitly say is that with the population growth, because there's already certain tax structure those people will be paying taxes, which presumably will be going to fund the services that they require. Why is more money needed? And one thing you need to understand about Castle Rock, we're a bedroom community. They pull somebody over for speeding and there's 4 cops there. There's such waste. And why are they, maybe if you didn't enforce some of the bullshit laws, then you wouldn't need to have so much more funding. But the fact is, the cops in Castle Rock are bored. There is not this pressing need. We are a low crime bedroom community, but looking to pad the budget. And Tabor, which is one of the items to fund town priorities, that they want to suspend it for 10 years, no less. They didn't mess with 4 or 5 years this time. They just go, let's go for a decade, where kids would be born and all the way partly through elementary school before their parents would be getting their Tabor refunds, possibly again. But they'd be eyeballing them to get them again in 10 years. It's just absolutely ridiculous. You would think we lived in a high crime area. But let's continue. Next clip. And I know this can be kind of dry, but I hope it's educational.
Thank you. Any more questions of staff? Seeing none, I have a few residents who are signed to speak. When I call your name, please approach the podium. Speaking to the microphone, and online users may use the raise your hand feature, and phone-in callers can press *3. Please state your name and whether you're a resident, non-resident, or business owner. First up, I have Kyle Mabry online.
I just wanted to note here that Kyle, the person who is on the phone, is a neighbor across the street from Wayne and I believe is a registered libertarian, but certainly libertarian leading. So yeah, no, he didn't say what he actually needs the money for. It was just all feel good, buzzwords, police, buzzwords, service, buzzwords, whatever. And didn't explain why the additional revenue, which automatically comes with the additional population, wouldn't already fund it for a bedroom community.
Hi, thanks for hearing me. Can y'all hear me?
Absolutely, thank you.
Perfect. I just had a general question. Where is the funds going to be allocated to? Is it going to be a general fund, or is it a budget specifically line item for police and fire departments? Specifically relating to Tabor and the home builder new tax.
David?
Mayor and Council, our plan would be that money be only used for police and fire in a separate account in the town's general fund where we currently have all of the police and fire department. So there would be a separate accounting of that revenue coming in, a separate accounting of the expenditures going out. It would be part of the general fund, but we do that elsewhere in.
Okay, I'm just stopping this for 1 second because I want you to, this is really boring, but I want you to note the artful dodge on how the question and the point really isn't answered. So I did want to let the town manager, say his whole piece. And I wanted you to see the way Kyle, the libertarian, I believe, handled it. So let's continue with the town manager.
General fund in regards to how we keep track of specially designated funds. The accounting world doesn't like to create multiple funds, but we can do the same type of function.
Just note, the accounting world doesn't like to have designated funds. Since when? And he didn't ask what the accounting world likes. That wasn't the question.
Creating a separate account so that the public, council can see the revenue that was generated from that new home construction tax and then how it was spent in the police and fire departments separately, and so that there's no, there's obviously a commingling of function. In some cases, we may have a police officer that's paid for both from the new home construction tax and from the general fund, but we'll be able to show that as well.
Thank you, David.
So we'll update that on our budget online, because it's broken down in our 2021 budget now, but for people, for the public to see
Right.
and residents
It
to
would,
see.
it would be set out separate so that you'd be able to see that.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you. I didn't have-
Understood.
Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, I was going to follow up to that with a secondary question. If you had a separate account, would it require a measure to move those funds between the general accounts? So let's say your utilization of all of the funds for police and fire weren't appropriate or weren't utilized. Would it require a separate measure to move those funds from the account that was established to a new account?
Well, the only way that it could be spent would be on police and fire functions. So it will, if for some reason it would not have been used in that particular year, a vacancy in a position or something like that, it would then stay in that account and then be among the first funds used in the following year. I think, hopefully, I'm responding to your question. That's how it would be.
No, he's not responding to the question, because he's responding how it would be handled if it was in fact in a designated account. Right now, what they're doing is just putting it in a designated line item and saying, well, you could examine this super long, complicated budget, and perhaps residents should be doing that. But most of them aren't. Rather than them having to go through the trouble of actually putting it in a designated account so that it couldn't be used for anything else. But he's not really dealing with the point.
Done. Keep in mind, and town council is going to consider a budget amendment here later this evening. The only way that the town can spend money is if it has been appropriated by town council by a duly adopted town council approved ordinance. So that would all be set out in that accounting of the total general fund and the that separate fund. I envision scenarios where some of the staffing, some of the equipment would need to be both general fund resources and the new home construction tax resources. So that we can do that. We have multiple places where people are paid from, but you just have to follow those numbers and that different accounting, and that's what we would make clear and make transparent to the public.
Understood. And then I have a third question that was generated when you were going through your slides. I think you said you had $2 million appropriate, or there was a request for $2 million for 75 new police officers in fire department. That puts it at about $23,000 a year. Where would the other funds be coming for those new positions?
Hopefully I didn't misspeak. What I indicated is that the proposed new home construction tax would generate approximately $12 million to $13 million per year, and that's those funds over that 5-year period, the 22 to 26-year period, would allow us to do the equipment and the staffing that was been requested by the police chief. I did use the $2 million example that I can recall in my discussion was it took about $2 million on an annual basis to begin the staffing of Station 152 there on Crystal Valley Parkway, and that had to be new money, and that's roughly how much it costs to staff a new station. The cost has probably gone up there. That significantly does not include a medical unit, a medic unit, which is another expense above that $2 million. And that's very likely to be the case with the station that Chief Kroom has talked about our first station that we need to build, 156 on Castle Oaks Drive, would have not only just the traditional complement of the 12 to 13 firefighters, EMT, paramedics, but then firefighters, EMTs, but they would also be then staffed with a medic unit for paramedics, and that's in addition to that $2 million cost. I don't know if I'm helping answer the question or.
No, you are. I may have misheard. I thought that the request for the new staffing was a $2 million proposal, but if that's not the case, then I misheard.
No, it's a 12.
So, yeah, there was a lot of fluff in that answer. I mean, there was also some good stuff. Yeah, I do agree that I think city managers are professional bullshitters. That's what they're paid to do. But there was an awful lot of fluff there that didn't deal with the fact that we already are getting new revenue from the new residents. And that this is, we don't live in the hood. This isn't like Compton here, you know? This is Castle Rock. This is a relatively affluent, low incident area. And of course, there's also income that comes in from ambulance services and the like too, that helps to offset those costs. We don't have a large indigent population here that are existing on the public dime. Again, this is, I think, the wealthiest county in the state. Douglas County, I believe, is the wealthiest county. So let's go on to the next clip.
I have some other people who are signed to speak. Wayne Harlos.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Wayne Harlos. I'm a 28-year resident of Castle Rock. I'm here to speak against the tax increases. And I'll tell you several reasons why. First, the big one is, to me, the Tabor refund was voted on several years ago, and as Dave indicated, it won overwhelmingly. We are blessed to have a constituency here in Castle Rock that is very affluent. So for those people to miss out on their Tabor refund is no big deal. But what about all the people that need that Tabor refund to pay their light bill or to put groceries on the table or to put shoes on their kids' feet? Nobody ever hears about those people because they're outvoted here in Castle Rock. That money is not Castle Rock's. That money is the taxpayers' money. I find it to be very disappointing that 51% of the voters can take away the other 49%'s income that they may need to survive. Really bothers me. The next one is the increase of the taxes on new built construction on housing. I'm a real estate broker. So many of the buyers that are out there right now are being priced out of the market, not only because of market appreciation, which there's nothing you can do about that, but with lumber price increases, and now with the proposed increase in taxes, so many of these young people are priced out, they'll never catch up. They will never be able to buy a house if they can't get started now. So raising the price of housing is not a solution. There's got to be another way to raise the money. How would you feel if your son or daughter tried to buy a house and all of a sudden it went up $15,000? They couldn't qualify, and then the housing prices went up 3 to 4% per year, and their income didn't go up that same amount, and they were never able to buy a house again, ever. That's what we're facing right now. We're complicit if we step up and allow this to happen. Now, the lodging tax, this one doesn't bother me quite as badly, with the exception of in past town council meetings, I've seen people town council members that were your predecessors that talked about the importance of having the Airbnbs also included within this so that the motels and the B&Bs would be on a level playing field. Well, that's fine if you have a professionally managed B&B, but what happens if you're Aunt Sally and Uncle Bob and you want to take a month and go down and be a campground host for a month, and while you're gone, you want to rent your house out for a short-term rental? You're not going through a service that rents your property out, so you have to take care of all the accounting, all the paperwork that goes along with it, and it is untenable for people to be in that situation. The last one is the 0.1% sales tax increase. I read everywhere, and I could not find anywhere that groceries were excluded from that. The grocery tax is a tax that we shouldn't have anyway. Once again, that's the most regressive tax that the town of Castle Rock has, and it's unfair to those that are in need. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Harlos.
Thanks, Wayne.
I'm proud of my husband. He did good. He did good. So I'm hoping that the way we're addressing some of the points helps some of you guys get some confidence and the oomph to using Matthew Alistair's word for my opening and intro and outro music to go and start participating in the political process. Okay. Now, I think I'm up next. So again, I'm sorry that these take a little bit to queue up because I had difficulty downloading them. But, so next up, get ready to get riled up.
Next up, I have Carrie Ann Harlos. Or Karen Ann? Sorry.
Karen Ann.
Sorry, Karen.
You get 2 for 1 today. Hello, everyone, and I do appreciate the opportunity for public comment. I'm going to reiterate some of the points my husband's made, but come at them from a different direction. I remind the council members that government is force. Every single thing that you're looking to do involves forcibly taking money from potentially unwilling people. I can tell you I'm unwilling, and government is supposed to be by the consent of the government, of the governed. I don't consent, and the fact that some people might outweigh me doesn't delegitimize the fact that I still don't consent. So each time you are looking to raise some kind of money, realize that you are taking it forcibly from the hands of at least some people that are unwilling. And if you don't have the right to go to your neighbor and hold a gun to them and steal their money, just because the fact that you're sitting behind a fancy bench and were elected by a certain constituency still does not give you that right. And that's something I wish all government officials would take very, very seriously as they're starting to consider these measures. The Tabor one is the most offensive. This is supposed to be a taxpayer's bill of rights. Rights should not be able to be voted away. And I heard, oh, in 10 years we can revisit this. I bet we heard that 4 years ago too. And I bet in 10 years some of the same arguments will be had. And my husband made the point, how dare you take it from people who might need it just because some people think they don't need it? Well, let them voluntarily give it. Why don't you put on the ballot measure that those of you who don't want your Tabor refund, you can voluntarily give it to Castle Rock. But don't take it from the people who might need it the most. This is a bill of rights that they are supposed to have. Also, I'm finding very interesting some of the justifications for where we're going to get some of this tax money. You found victims that were the least offensive. Oh, we can take it from lodgers because the town of Castle Rock didn't mind if we robbed the people that are just coming through. That is a really interesting way. There's no direct correlation between the people who are renting a hotel room and where this money is supposed to be spent, except for they are the victims that everyone decided are the least offensive that they can live with. That is not justice, and we're supposed to be about justice. The raising for police, well, that's a legitimate function of government. I'm not so sure we need those funds. I don't hear anything about sunsetting other funds.
But you want to know what? It's not a legitimate function of government to steal from the citizens to have nice parks. There needs to be other ways to raise that kind of money. There's plenty of people here who don't even use our parks. That's not a legitimate function of government. We just celebrated the 4th of July, and we are completely failing the experiment of this country when we start forcibly taking money from people for things that are not a legitimate function of government because some people think they're nice to have. And I also noticed there was a little bit of an artful dodge about the segregated fund. The fact is, it isn't a segregated fund, it's just a line item. I'm the national secretary for the Libertarian Party. I understand segregated funds, and I understand money going into a general fund. And when we have to put aside certain money because of FEC requirements, when they're in a segregated fund, they can't be used for anything else. It's different than an accounting trick that you can do when it's just in the general fund. So I would urge you, if there are urgent things for police and fire, that they be in an actual segregated fund, because otherwise it's the fox guarding the hen house. And I'm on a governing body. I don't trust myself that much. You shouldn't trust yourself that much. Remember, what you're looking at is force. Use it wisely.
Thanks, Karen Ann.
I don't think they're too used to the libertarians coming to town. So I was pretty happy with that. I'm going to be going to the second reading, because of course they passed these all out of first hearing. I'll be going to the second hearing because what really burns my biscuits is how eager they were to put these ballot initiatives. So you'll see as we get on where they're going to pass the buck by saying, we're not passing these tax increases. We're just putting our stamp so that they could go on a ballot measure and we could propagandize them to Castle Rock, okay? Meanwhile, it is quite obvious that nearly everybody today is fed up with the political system as it is. So I went to the town council and asked them to ballot sponsor a ballot initiative to let the voters choose whether they wanted to try ranked choice voting. And they were like, oh no, we can't let them decide that. So forcing us to go out and petition for that. Meanwhile, they just breezily sponsor tax increases. So at the July 20th second hearing, I'll be bringing that up in spades. I can guarantee you that. Now, here's another libertarian I'm very proud of. We had not met him before. He's also a neighbor who answered our call to action to come testify. So I'd like you to hear from him next.
Yes, I actually filled out the form, but I don't know if it didn't make it to your desk.
Okay.
Sorry. All right. Okay. So my name is Farhan. I'm a resident of Castle Rock, and English is my second language, so please bear with me. And I'm going to speak against this item number 14, but whatever I say here, please do not construe it as my disrespect to anybody here. I have my utmost respect for the people in our police department and in our fire department, and even the people here at the council, even when I see all the motions being passed 7-0. So I still applaud you guys for doing the work that you guys are doing. My disagreement with this initiative is on the principles, because, and the precedent it is going to set, because it is, and initiatives like this are going to take my resources away without my consent, which is theft. Okay, and basically what we are doing here is it's two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner. You know, if two people decide that they can take resources from the third person, it still does not give them the right to take the resources from the third person because the third person has not consented. This is the difference between consensual sex and rape. So do not rape other people. Do not rape 49% of the population. I would suggest changing the ballot language to apply these kind of tax increases to only the people who are going to say yes. Probably you cannot do that because you have to keep their responses confidential, but you can ask them to voluntarily contribute that. I will see how many of the people who are going to vote yes are going to voluntarily contribute that money. Okay. And I'm here. I can pledge that if this measure doesn't pass, anytime the town asks for voluntary contributions, I'm going to do that. Because then I'm willing, I'm giving my consent, and I'm doing it. I'm not stealing anybody's money to do anything that's going to make me feel nice about it. And people here in Douglas County are already highly taxed. Okay, compared to the rest of the counties in Colorado, we are already highly taxed. So try not to milk this cow any further. Ask for voluntary contributions, and people are going to do that. And I understand our police department is doing a great job, our fire department is doing a great job, but yes, to increase the safety of people, I think there are other measures that can be taken, like improving education about firearm ownership and letting people be defenders of themselves instead of being the victims, because even the best police is minutes away when seconds count. So there are other ways to improve the safety of the residents of this town. And there are, I know these are challenging times where our fire department might not have that many resources, but that brings us to think out of the box. Probably when an elderly person needs to be lifted from the floor and be put back in the bed, we don't need a fire truck to go there. There could be a smaller vehicle that can go there to help that person. So there are other things that could be done to work with those costs and be more efficient. And I'm not saying that our departments are not doing a great job. They're already doing a great job, but we can think outside of the box and think of other measures and other ways to actually get these funds and ask people to voluntarily contribute instead of taxing them. Similarly, for parks and trails, just like state parks, we can have some kind of fees that can be paid by the people who are actually using those parks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I thought he did a fantastic job. So, great person to get into the Colorado activism. And he already volunteered to help me should I run for town council, which I am definitely considering. I'm also sending this video over to the town council, by the way, which is one reason why my language is a lot nicer than it normally is. But I have more here. I want to highlight and break down then the town council's reactions to our comments. I can tell they're utterly unfamiliar with libertarian arguments to begin with. So I'm not going to take their non-addressing of the actual points as disrespect. I just don't think they're used to them, but they're going to get used to them. So here's the last part where I'll be starting and stopping, just dealing with how they then responded to all of this. So all of the public commentary was all libertarians, because that was the entirety of the public comment. Okay, so let me pull up the remainder here.
Desi?
Okay, first off, I'd like to thank Chief Colley and Kroom for the job that you guys do in retaining the staff that you have. I'm sure with the political climate you've been challenged with, it's been difficult, and you guys have not skipped a beat, so thank you for that. I guess I'm not sure because, and with all due respect, with the national election last year, it didn't go in the way I would have liked to have seen, but I'm abiding by the way the people voted, and I'm respecting the way the people voted on a national level. So I'm not sure how we want to change that in our own community. What we bring it to the voters and what they vote on is what passes, then it has to be respected. It's bringing it to the people. Also, Dave, I just want to...
Okay, I want to stop here because she obviously just does not comprehend the argument. Why does it have to be respected? You're just assuming this. I say no. Now what? Lady, I don't consent. It's fine that you're fine with a majority deciding what can be done with your resources and your body and your life. I don't consent. So, yeah. So you're saying, oh, well, but this is the system we all agreed to. I didn't agree to it. And they just don't know how to face that. And yes, it's the system we're living in now. It doesn't make it right. There's been plenty of unjust systems that have existed in the world. It doesn't make it right. But she just seems utterly flabbergasted. Well, the national election didn't go the way I wanted, but I chose to abide by it. Well, that's fine. That's your choice. You don't get to choose for me. What is so difficult about that to understand? And what is so difficult to understand that we live in a fairly rich county where it's easy for the majority of rich people to vote away the money of the less rich people. Hey, Farhan, you did a great job. So she just doesn't get it. And I'm hoping with additional argumentation, she will. But she's just like, well, we're just saying to bring it to the voters. Well, why won't you bring ranked choice voting to the voters? The inconsistency is just incredible to me.
If I was doing some research with the lodging tax, I saw Parker and Centennial are implementing, as of May 1st this year, a new lodging tax. Lone Tree is 6%, which is what we're proposing, so we're right there, industry standard with neighboring communities, correct?
Well, you know, our neighbors are stealing at this rate, so we need to keep up with the thieving Joneses. So she's justifying this lodging tax by the fact everyone else is doing it. That doesn't make it right, particularly in light of the fact that you guys decided who you were going to tax by asking the residents who we don't mind fleecing. And people who are just lodgers coming through don't have a voice. So it's even worse than voting to steal from your neighbor. We're voting to steal from people who don't even have a voice in Castle Rock.
That's correct. We in your materials in Matt's memo, we list all of the different taxes and where they are in regards to other jurisdictions. Lone Tree's at 6%. I think Parker's at 3%, but they may be getting ready to adjust it. Different communities are at different places. Obviously, how you want to compare one community to another, I don't know that we compare to the mountain communities that are at a very much at a higher end. Colorado Springs is at 2%. But then they've got quite a bit more lodging. So but 6% was the number that we're recommending given some of our Parks and Recreation maintenance needs.
So we're not, we're not asking for high above our neighbors. We're right there competitively with them. And also a sales tax.
So she's not even dealing with the point that it's wrong. Well, there's several mafias here in Colorado, and, we're right on par with the coercion used by the neighboring mafia. So we're cool, right? We're cool, fam. No. And then whatever happened to perhaps because we have some family-owned hotels in town. There's some older, it's not all chains. Well, perhaps they want to be more competitive to bring in more lodgers into Castle Rock that would then frequent our businesses by being able to offer a lower rate. But no, because you want nice parks. Most of this, half of this funding here that they're wanting, we have so many parks here, I cannot even tell you. And We're talking like the Rolls Royce of parks. It's absolutely ridiculous. Sure, they're nice to have. That's not a legitimate function of government. I would like to have foot rubs every day, lady. Can we tax everybody for it? It sure would be nice to have.
I also like to say a couple of things. I mean, I've been on council just over a couple of years now, and we haven't had a ballot question since I became a mayor, and I take this very seriously. We all should take it seriously.
I apologize. I hit ahead. She says something else about the new home tax. So I want to try to go back to where we were. I apologize. I did skip ahead by accident. So let me try to find our spot.
Our sales tax at 4% is in the upper municipality. So, for example, our mill levy is very low. You go to Lone Tree, they don't have a City of Lone Tree mill levy, but then they have a mill levy for South Metro Fire and South Suburban Parks and Recreation. The total is about 17 mills. So it's somewhat difficult to compare among communities,
Sure.
but we are at the upper end of municipal sales taxes at 4%. But then we compare very favorably in regards to property tax. So depending upon how you want to look at it.
Yeah.
You notice, so when we're quote unquote competitive with the theft rate of the neighbors, then that's used as an argument. And then here, we're already on the high end, but we're just going to gloss that over. See, it doesn't really matter what the answer is. It's like, A, you win, B, I win, or heads I win, tails you lose. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
And we also have relatively high impact fees and system development charges. But then we have relatively, you look at the property tax again and other things. So we've got that all in that sheet, and kind of depends on how you want to look at it and what areas you want to emphasize.
Yeah, you should be looking at it as theft. It really isn't that difficult.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Comments from council? I'd like to say a couple of things. I mean, I've been on council just over a couple of years now, and we haven't had a ballot question since I became a mayor, and I take this very seriously. We all should take it seriously. I don't love the idea of raising taxes, but I do love the idea of having a first-rate community.
You love the idea of having all these beautiful parks. So even though you don't like stealing, you decided this is okay to steal for. Because we want our badge of first-rate community. You want to know something? It is not the job of government to make a first-rate community. It is the job of the citizens and the businesses, not you guys.
And I think that we all have the idea of our first-rate community in our minds is different for everybody. And
yeah, it is different for everybody. So why are you trying to force your will?
Even though there are certain things on these four that I don't love, I also like the idea that we'll bring it to our people and we'll bring it to our residents to decide yes or no.
Oh, so you don't love them and you realize, they might not be necessary. I would think at a minimum the town council should be a gatekeeper to try to protect the citizens against theft, even if it is pillaging by their neighbors who happen to just have a few more votes than other people. This is what they don't get. There's this American ritual where we think we can sanctify wrongdoing because a majority said it was okay. But it doesn't matter. To use Farhan's example, 99 people out of 100, with me being the 100th, can vote to rape me. My no wins.
So that's what I like about it. I do like the idea that the 7 of us aren't deciding what to raise taxes. What we're deciding is put measures on the ballot for our citizens to decide what to do.
Okay, so you're absolving yourself like Pontius Pilate, washing your hands, saying, well, we're not raising it. We're just providing the opportunity for a majority gang of some people to virtue signal about our beautiful parks to other people and rob from everybody else. No, you should be the gatekeeper protecting the minority from the majority. You don't get to wash your hands of this. And if you were so enthralled, I remember what you said, Mr. Sir, about ranked choice voting and how it was just too confusing for the people to decide that. But you think it's okay for the people to decide to rob their neighbors. Consistency.
And then we will respect their decisions. Well, that's how I see it, and hopefully or most of our citizens don't see it, and hopefully our councils.
Yeah, well, the ones who don't consent don't see it that way, but I guess they don't matter. Because I don't consent, sir.
Any further discussion? Kevin?
Yeah, I think just some comments about the ballot issue. I think that we need to be prescriptive on what we put on the ballot, because if we want to help our police and fire, we need to decide what's actually going to pass. And so when I say that, we can't put all these measures on the ballot. It just doesn't make sense, right? So we got to figure out what's going to hit the target, and what's the end goal, and if it's the
Okay, I'm going to stop for 1 second. I don't agree with all of this guy's arguments, but he was the most reasonable out of everybody, where he starts to go, do we want to get more money for police and fire, which, if you're a minarchist, is a legitimate function of government. And he will deprioritize the parks, which you will see how my representative, Karen Johnson, just about loses her shit over this, because she ran on, and she lives in my neighborhood. Cushy, okay? They're not hurting. But there are people here who are hurting. And I don't even have to justify that. I could be Scrooge McDuck on a pile of gold. You still don't get to steal from me.
Issue, and that's important to pull in front, then that becomes the issue. But I think we need to realize what the end goal is, where the voters can approve. I don't want to put anything on the ballot that's unrealistic. I don't want to put anything on a ballot that is not going to be approved, but I certainly want them to weigh in on what makes sense and what can keep us safe and equitable for the foreseeable future or the 26. So those are my comments. So just this isn't a deciding issue tonight, but that's where I'm going with it. I'm certainly narrowing my choices in terms of what I think could potentially pass, or items that could contradict each other in terms of, if you're going to run your finger down a ballot, what's the voter thinking? Are they going to go with the lowest percent number because it makes the lowest percent, or are they going to say no to all of them? So that's where I'm kind of going with it, just the logic piece of it. That's just what I'm thinking for these issues. I know I kind of have my leaders right now, but I just wanted to make those comments to foreshadow the next discussion. So that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Tim Dietzen and Desi LaFleur.
Yeah, I too agree with bringing it to the voters. I too have always lived with every other vote that's come out there, and I've done my best to move forward. I think we got a lot of great options. I say my comment would be, let's look at them all. Let's put them all out there and let you people make the decision. I'm grateful I don't, but I've been...
I wanted to stop for 1 second here. I'm not sure I clipped out all the comments, because I see there's only a minute left, and I remember some really bad comments. So I apologize, Farhan, if I don't get Karen Johnson's comment. So let me put this up on the screen, because in case we don't get to it, I wanted to show, Karen Johnson did say that 60% of our sales tax comes from out-of-towners. So it's okay to increase, because it's okay to pillage the people that are coming through town. And then, I'm sorry, but her name is escaping me. It's the lady who spoke first, who also said, well, in such a Marie Antoinette manner, well, those new home buyers you were talking about, Wayne Harlos, they could just buy an existing construction. let them eat cake, eh? Crazy. Just absolutely crazy. The flippancy. And the funny thing is, I asked Wayne how many, LaFleur. Thank you, Fran. I asked Wayne how many of these council members would, because this is nonpartisan, but how many of them are either Republicans or would consider themselves conservatives? And it was the majority. Do these sound like conservatives to you? For parks? Now, Karen Johnson's not a conservative. I believe she's a progressive. So she's being consistent. But these conservatives certainly aren't.
Since I was 18 too, and there's a lot of things I haven't liked either, but I'm on the other side now, and I'm seeing a whole different picture. So thank you.
Desi?
Also, too, just for clarification, the new home construction tax isn't to discourage young or new buyers. It's purely for new homes. So if anybody buying, their first home in an already established neighborhood, a house that's already built, would not be subjected to that tax, correct?
Okay. There is a severe lack of affordable housing in Castle Rock. The only affordable housing people will have is if developers come in and are building new affordable housing. My home, for instance, when we bought it, I think, and I thought this was ridiculously expensive when we bought it, I think it was $240,000. It's gone up $100,000. We wouldn't have been able to afford it then. And this isn't like a ritzy neighborhood. I would say it's middle class, middle class founders. It's certainly not lower middle class, but I don't think it's not upper middle class. So, you're typical. That's not affordable. It would be people coming in with new construction that are maybe building smaller starter homes. That would be, and Wayne says $200K. I couldn't really remember. I thought it was ridiculous then. So it's just absolutely ridiculous. So she's basically let them eat cake. Well, they could just buy something else. What happened to the fact that, in a free market, we should be able to have our choices? So what you're picking winners and losers now, where the builders now can't market to first-time home buyers? And this great population growth, where are they supposed to live?
Thank you. One thing I wanted to add as well is from our citizen survey, one of the things that we were kind of directed to do, we were asked to do, and I think we're trying to move forward with that, is land acquisition and open space acquisition. Money that we don't have right now for those kind of things, for parks and for open space and trails. And I think that what we're seeing is we have a lot of citizens who would like to see more of that. Okay,
I didn't clip out Karen Johnson having a bit of a meltdown over her parks. But all of the ballot measures did pass on to second hearing. Let me go to my big screen here. But what's interesting, he's basically saying, well, we polled the community and they really want us to buy more land for open space. Then why didn't you make them petition for it the way you're going to make me petition for ranked choice voting? Did you send out a little survey about that using my money? No, you didn't. If some people here would like to buy more open space, they can band together in a nonprofit, buy it, and deed it over to the town, which has happened before. We probably have more parks per capita. Like we've got a lot of parks. I mean, they really have a park fetish here. And yes, Wayne in comments also noted, when you ask people for a wish list of things they want when you don't put costs on it, of course they're going to say, yeah, that would be great. It's almost like when a survey goes out about single payer, or do you want government to provide health care for everyone? It's overwhelmingly yes, until the same survey goes out putting the cost on it, and it doesn't pass. This is all sleight of hand, yet they're acting so noble. In my view, the council should maybe come up with some minimal threshold of some kind of support for them to sponsor something as a ballot initiative, or don't sponsor anything. Because the way they pick and choose what ballot initiatives, they've loaded the deck. If the police and fire, or people want more police and fire, let them petition to get it on the ballot. Don't make it quite so easy to steal from our neighbors, or just put everything then on the ballot. Yeah, I am really salty about the way they just, without a second thought, wouldn't put ranked choice on there, because it might affect their seats. Even though it is very, very apparent in this country with what happened in the last election that voters want reform. They want voting reform. They want more choices. And ranked choice is spreading like wildfire throughout Colorado. That was probably a bad term because we do have wildfires here. But on the state level, all kinds of initiatives have just gotten passed to enable local municipalities to enact ranked choice. This is wanted by the people in Colorado, yet they refuse to put it as a ballot thing. But when it comes to their precious parks, that's not a legitimate function of government. I don't care how many people want it. Let them privately fund it then. You need a civics lesson on what it's okay. And listen, you all know my position. I'm an anarchist. So, which is now I am sending this to town council. They're probably going to freak even more the hell out. But I understand we have a government. And if we're going to have a government, you need to keep it small and limited to protection, courts, and we don't deal with military in Castle Rock. So protection and courts. And let the market handle everything else. Okay. That was a lot longer than I thought it would be, but I don't think we have enough of this breaking apart things to empower people for local community activism. This is the stuff that really, really matters, not all the LNC drama and all that. Get out there and start spreading the message and doing the work, and perhaps run for your local town council. Like, I'm fired up. I want to run now. I want to be the one no vote on everything. That one no vote will say somebody's doing their job. So, I am, see, oh, that's funny, elastic giraffe. Excuse me, I'm going to have a coughing fit. So, I am going to be heading out, but I do hope you appreciated this. And again, to trigger all the right people, I am going to put my Patreon again on the bottom. I'm trying to do the type of content that you might not be getting elsewhere, very libertarian focused, very activist focused. So if you can, this isn't the type of things that makes ad revenue on YouTube. I don't mind telling you. So for last month, I was monetized for ads. Guess how much I made in ads? $20, I think, between $20 and $30. Nobody's getting rich off of ads on libertarian political content. So I do rely upon super chats, which are always, always appreciated. And I also rely upon my patrons. So thank you, everyone. And I need to look up for on when District 5 is opening up. So I hope you all have a good night. Thank you so much for caring enough to learn about this kind of stuff.
what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians, or choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business.